Listen very carefully because what I'm about to tell you is being deliberately buried, and if you blink, you will miss one of the most aggressive inflection points in XRP history because a major vote just passed. Yes, approved, not rumored, not teased, approved. And the market reaction makes absolutely no sense unless you understand what's happening behind the curtain. Everyone expected fireworks, headlines, instant green candles, and instead we got confusion, hesitation, sideways noise. And that is exactly how you know something massive is loading. Ask yourself this: when has the market ever reacted rationally right before a structural shift? And why would BlackRock, the SEC, the IMF, and legacy banking infrastructure suddenly be mentioned in the same breath as Ripple in closed-door conversations while retail is being told nothing is happening? This vote was supposed to be the moment, yet price stalls, sentiment wobbles, and mainstream crypto Twitter shrugs, which should immediately trigger alarm bells because this is textbook accumulation behavior masked as uncertainty. The approval itself is not the headline, the timing is not the headline, the reaction is the headline, because when good news doesn't pump, it usually means smart money is positioning while shaking out anyone who doesn't understand the chessboard. Think about it. Why would institutions with trillion-dollar balance sheets allow easy entries after a green light unless they wanted maximum supply transferred from weak hands? This is where insiders thrive and emotional traders get slaughtered. Before I go any further, if you want real XRP intelligence instead of recycled nonsense, you need to subscribe right now, turn notifications on, and comment that you're locked in, because this channel is not here to comfort you, it's here to prepare you. What you're watching unfold is not a failure of XRP, it's a controlled reaction, a deliberate delay, a psychological operation that is played out before every major repricing event in this market. The vote passing is the first domino, but the real move comes when the market realizes who actually benefits from confusion. And spoiler alert, it's not retail panic sellers, it's the same institutions that dismissed crypto publicly while building infrastructure privately. Stay with me because once you see how this approval connects to regulatory posture, liquidity corridors, and silent positioning by entities that never lose, you're going to understand why this so-called unexpected reaction is actually the loudest signal you could ever get. Now let's escalate this with cold, hard authority, because this is where the casual viewer gets uncomfortable and the informed holder leans in. The vote that just passed didn't happen in isolation, it happened against a backdrop of regulatory recalibration, liquidity stress, and institutional repositioning that most people are not equipped to connect. Look at the data points lining up quietly: Ripple expanding corridors while the IMF openly discusses tokenized liquidity rails, the SEC shifting tone from enforcement theater to framework discussion, and BlackRock simultaneously pushing tokenization narratives while pretending XRP isn't relevant. You don't need an announcement to read intent, you read behavior, and behavior right now screams preparation. Historical precedent matters here, because every time a regulatory or legislative green light has occurred before a true reprice, the market reaction has been muted or even negative at first. And that's not accidental, that's engineered. On-chain metrics show supply tightening while volatility compresses, derivatives funding stays neutral, and spot demand quietly absorbs sell pressure, which tells you one thing: someone with patience and size is buying without wanting price attention. Meanwhile, industry figures publicly downplay XRP's role while privately acknowledging Ripple's infrastructure advantage, and that contradiction is your clue. When the SEC stops fighting and starts defining, when global institutions stop mocking and start integrating, and when a vote gets approved but price doesn't explode, that's not failure, that's stealth. This is the phase where narratives are intentionally fragmented so conviction gets tested, because the last thing smart money wants is a euphoric crowd before positioning is complete. Ask yourself this brutal question: if this vote truly meant nothing, why would the reaction feel so psychologically heavy, so draining, so confusing? And why would every serious macro signal point to digital settlement efficiency at the exact moment XRP sits legally clarified and infrastructure ready? This is not speculation, this is pattern recognition, and patterns don't lie, people do. Good. Because this is where the fear gets dismantled and the real catalyst gets exposed, and I need you focused because this is the point where weak narratives collapse. Right now, FUD is being recycled at maximum velocity for one reason only: to exploit the emotional gap between approval and payoff, because most people cannot tolerate delayed gratification. You're being told the vote was already priced in, that XRP missed its chance, that liquidity moved elsewhere, and that Ripple is somehow late to a race it literally helped design, and that is laughable if you understand how infrastructure transitions actually happen. The true catalyst is not the vote itself, it's what the vote enables next: regulatory certainty cascading into institutional execution, pilot programs turning into live rails, and compliance barriers being removed one by one while the public is distracted by meme rotations and short-term noise. Remember, banks do not front-run clarity, they wait for it, and hedge funds do not chase green candles, they accumulate during boredom. Every major XRP suppression narrative right now relies on you ignoring context, ignoring timing, and ignoring who benefits from disbelief. When BlackRock talks tokenization, when the IMF talks cross-border settlement inefficiency, when central banks talk interoperability, and when Ripple is already embedded in that conversation, pretending XRP is irrelevant becomes intellectual dishonesty. This unexpected market reaction is not the market rejecting the news. It's the market testing conviction. And this is exactly where past XRP shakeouts occurred before violent upside expansions. If this vote truly had no impact, there would be no need to push uncertainty so aggressively, no need to question fundamentals that haven't weakened, and no need to constantly move the goalposts. The catalyst is approaching quietly, and by the time headlines align with price, positioning will already be complete. Now we arrive at the part that makes people either laugh nervously or sit up straight: the price justification, because this is where denial kicks in hard. Let's be brutally clear, XRP's valuation has never been about hype cycles. It has always been about utility multiplied by scale, and scale is where people catastrophically underestimate what's coming. When you map XRP against global settlement flows, cross-border liquidity, tokenized assets, and institutional throughput, current prices stop looking conservative and start looking absurd. This vote didn't approve a pump, it approved access. And access is what allows capital orders of magnitude larger than retail to even consider exposure. Do the math no one wants to do. If even a fraction of legacy settlement volume touches XRP rails, if even partial tokenization infrastructure routes through Ripple's ecosystem, you're not talking about incremental upside, you're talking about repricing. That's why the market reaction had to stay muted, because explosive moves invite scrutiny, and scrutiny before positioning is complete is the enemy of smart money. Here's the final warning, and I don't say this lightly: the most dangerous time to sell an asset is after it survives years of regulatory attack, receives structural approval, and then goes quiet. Silence after survival is not weakness, it's coiling. If you are waiting for permission from price to believe, you will be exit liquidity for those who understood the signal when the vote passed and the market blinked. This is where conviction gets paid or punished, and history is unforgiving to those who confuse boredom with failure. Respected holders, this is where everything comes together and where most people will later say they wish they paid attention, because the story is now fully formed even if the price hasn't caught up yet. A major vote passed. The reaction confused the crowd, the narratives turned muddy, and that exact sequence has preceded every meaningful revaluation event this market has ever seen. Nothing about XRP's fundamentals weakened, nothing about Ripple's positioning deteriorated, and nothing about the institutional trajectory reversed. Yet sentiment was deliberately drained, attention redirected, and patience tested. And that is not random, that is strategy. The biggest mistake you can make from here is assuming the market owes you instant gratification, because infrastructure assets move when alignment is complete, not when headlines feel exciting. When the SEC stops obstructing, when global institutions quietly prepare, and when price refuses to collapse despite relentless doubt, you are looking at pressure building, not opportunity fading. This vote was the permission slip. The unexpected reaction was the smokescreen, and the silence that follows is the calm before repricing. The people who understand this won't need confirmation later, and the people who don't will chase validation at higher prices, wondering how it happened so fast. Stay sharp, stay skeptical of noise, and remember this moment, because when XRP finally moves in a way that feels unfair, this was the window everyone was given and most ignored.